Neely Fuller Jr. Neely Fuller Jr., welcome back to WOL Radio.
Thank you.
You tell us that, we know that racism and white supremacy exists, but you say what we've got to use to decode the system of racism and white supremacy, we've got to use justice. Can you explain how that works? How do we use justice to decode the system?
Oh, well, you use a code to produce a product called justice. There's no record in recorded history of justice ever being produced by anybody. When you look at what logic tells me has to be the definition for justice, the pure definition, I've looked in several dictionaries, and I particularly didn't care for the definitions that were given to justice. For one thing, the word fair is always associated with justice. And the word fair is also associated with the word white, which means that in order to achieve justice, you have to have fairness, and fairness is usually associated with also skin color, like, you say, my fair lady, or, and then you turn right around and at the same time say, treat me fairly. Treat you like a fair lady? what are we talking about? What is that? The two words don't even go together, fair and justice. But in many dictionaries, you'll see the word fair associated with justice, and the word fair is also associated with the word white. See, we have to pay detailed attention to every word in the English language in particular, because every word in the English language, presumably, you assume this, in the system of white supremacy, is designed to support what is already in place, either directly or indirectly. So sometimes you just have to look at a word and say, I'm not accepting that word, so if I use the word, I'm going to use it with a compensatory definition, meaning a definition that will best describe the truth rather than add to what? Confusion. Why? Logically speaking, because the white supremacists thrive off of confusion, and they use words in such a manner as to manifest confusion in every situation that they're in that has to do with their subjects, which are the non-white people of the known universe. That's what white supremacy thrives on. That's a huge part of its strength. So in answer to the question, this word justice is something we're trying to achieve. So you give it a definition that makes sense and that you can measure it. It's too abstract a way, in my opinion. Now, in the opinion of many others, it may not be. But I've wrestled with that word justice. How do you know when you have it? And, you can say, well, you just know it. Okay, but at least you should have a definition that really helps you to know it and be able to explain it to somebody else and be able to measure it. Right down to the last inch, when you have it and when you don't have it. So about 1994, I heard that I kept asking people, what is the actual definition of the word justice? And I wasn't getting an answer that I was satisfied with. So looking at different dictionaries and whatnot, and then it was on a Larry King TV show, if I recall correctly. Sometimes my memory doesn't serve me correctly, but I think there was a man named Mr. Jerry Spence. I think it was about 1994, and he was being interviewed. And he and Larry King and Mr. Larry Spence, I think, is a lawyer, and they were talking about the word justice. What is the actual definition of the word justice? I immediately perked up because I wanted to hear this. And they said, well, actually, there is no real definition for the word justice, no legal definition. And then later on, I asked a lawyer, I said, what is the word? What is the definition of justice? So that, people are not just babbling all the time when they're talking about justice, but nobody can agree on what it means. And he said, well, in the Northwestern Hemisphere, in a court of law, Justice is whatever the Supreme Court says it is. And I said, is that the legal definition? Say, yeah, that's it. Whatever the Supreme Court says it is. I said, well, the Supreme Court is made up of people, and the people switch around all the time. And I had written something in the code book years before that said laws change, but justice remains the same. I still believe that. But I didn't have a definition for the word justice. But once I found out that justice is whatever in the Northwestern Hemisphere, in what they call the United States law, under the Constitution, justice is whatever the Supreme Court says it is. So I said, that should be completely unacceptable. There should be a legal definition for the word justice that you can actually measure. So each and every person will know when you got it and when you haven't. So I tried to come up with a compensatory definition, which is a word which is in the title of my book, compensation, which means making up for what's missing. What was missing in this particular case was an acceptable definition for the word justice. So it took me about 8 months. I thought I could do it in a couple of weeks. But, I wrestled with it. So finally I came up with one, a two-part definition. First part, guaranteeing that no person is mistreated. In other words, if you can't guarantee that no person is being mistreated, you don't have justice, all right? Number two, guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help. And underline the word constructive. Because a person might say, well, I need some help. You say, well, what kind of help do you need? You say, well, I'm a drug addict and I need another fix. Well, then you look at that and say, wait a minute. If you get another fix as a drug addict and you just add to the drugs that you're already taking and you just add to more drugs, is that constructive? See, all problems.
Hold that thought right there, Neely Fuller Jr. We got to take a break here. We got to check the traffic and weather. Folks, you got to listen keenly whenever Neely Fuller's on the radio because he uses logic. 800-450-7876 is the number to call to speak to him. Taking calls after the traffic and weather update on FM 95.9 and AM 1450. WOL, where information is power. Thank you for staying with us, folks. Our guest is Neely Fuller Jr. We're discussing racism, white supremacy, and how to decode that system. He says we need to find justice. Number to call to speak to Neely is 800-450-7876. And again, let me caution you, you've got to listen very keenly to what he says because he uses logic, cause and effect. I keep saying this guy, people who went to law school, they have to take a logic course. They understand they'll get it faster than other folks. But if you don't get it the first time, don't worry. Just keep listening, then you'll understand. But again, he uses logic, cause and effect. So Neely Fuller Jr., I'll let you tell us how to decode the system and so we can reach a place of justice.
So justice is not something that you find. Justice is something that you have to produce because it's never been produced in recorded history according to everything I've read and heard, which means what? How do we know it's never been produced? Because I've never picked up a book anywhere that said there was a time when no one was mistreated and that everybody who needed constructive help got that constructive help in all of the 9 areas of activity: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. There's never been a time, there's never been a people who has ever produced a product called justice in recorded history, maybe in pre-recorded history, but I've never read about a place where you could go where there was justice other than, with the possible exception, but this gets into the religious realm. In the Christian religion, I understand that there was paradise in the beginning, that everything was perfect. I mean, nothing was out of order. That the two people who were then on the planet, in the person, according to Genesis in the Christian religion, Genesis, Adam and Eve, as I've been taught, that everything was perfect, which means there was no non-justice. There was balance between those two people because it wasn't but two people here. Okay? And it was perfect balance because justice is balance between people where no one is mistreated ever, not for 5 minutes does a person get mistreated. And everyone, in this case, two people, got constructive help until they said things kind of got out of order because people disobeyed, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But that's a religious story, which I won't get into, but I'm just saying that's the one that I heard about. Now, prior to that, or since then, I haven't heard anything about that perfect society that existed at one time where there was justice. I mean, you know, never no non-justice, not for 10 minutes, because if you got it for 10 minutes, that's 10 minutes of non-justice. Somebody didn't get the help that they needed, constructive help, and or someone was being mistreated by someone else. Because justice is balance between people, all right, not between things. That's another word that I use for that, and that's correctness. Balance between people and things is correctness. You know, balance between a person and the air, balance between a person and the general environment. That comes under the term correctness, because that's not balance between people. But you have to have correctness, too, in the behavior of people in order to have balance between people. See, so you have to be in harmony with the environment in order to be in harmony with people. Everything is very carefully interwoven in what we call the universe. This is logically speaking, in order for it to be a universe. That's what una means, united. Everything that you interact with, all of the elements, the air, the sunshine, the creatures around you, all in balance with each other in a constructive manner. Now, everything is out of balance in the system of white supremacy. And there's no such thing as having justice and white supremacy, logically speaking, in the same universe at the same time. It is absolutely impossible. According to what? Neely Fuller? No. According to logic. That can't be done. You can't have white supremacy or racism, not for 2 seconds, and have justice on the same planet at the same time. It cannot be done. So there's no way to have justice in a system of white supremacy. It cannot happen. Not for 2 seconds can it happen anywhere. And this is the only government, by the way, on the planet now. According to what? All of the evidence. There is no government superior to the system of white supremacy. And there is no, when I say government, I mean political government or religious government. There's no religion anywhere in the known universe in 2018 on the planet Earth that is stronger than the religion of white supremacy. So that gets into another word, and that's the definition of religion. Compensatory definition for religion. The logical definition for the word religion is what? It is that you are using logic to practice what should be practiced. You're not out of balance with something. And religion is a strong belief backed up by action. All right? But a correct religion, you have to have justice. All right? So there is no correct religion in the system of white supremacy. You can't even practice it. You can try. People can claim that they're practicing it. But the white supremacists, if you're a person of color, are not going to let you go and practice any religion that competes with the religion of white supremacy. The white supremacists have overruled every religion that has ever shown up since the beginning of white supremacy. The white supremacists come around and check on people, and they say, You can do this and do that and do the other, but if it interferes with the religion of white supremacy, I'm not going to let you do that. And if you don't believe I'm not going to let you do it, I'll shoot up your church. And there's nothing you can do about it but beg me to beg some other white person, all right, to stop me from doing it. Because you can't make me stop. I can shoot up your church anytime I get ready and have proven that I will do that. And you can just pray that I won't do it again because you don't have the power to stop me. And your religion is not powerful enough to stop me. Now, that's what the white supremacists say to the dark people of this planet. I don't care what that dark person's religion is. And they have so far proven that they are correct.
All right, hang on a second. We got some folks
who
want to talk to you.
You can do anything in your religion if you are a person of color, as long as it doesn't interfere with the business of white supremacy. And they'll tell you that right to your face. And then they back it up with action. See, anytime anybody thinks of it, that ain't true. You ain't no match for my religion. And they get in the white supremacist's face, there's no record of where you didn't have to back down and apologize.
Hang on a second, Neely Fuller Jr. Mike is joining us on line one. He's calling from L.A. Mike, you're on with Neely Fuller Jr.
Thank you, Carl. Thank you also, Dr. Fuller, for you trying to help us understand this concept, this racism concept. Got two questions for you. The first question is, a lot of people I've noticed have problems with this term white supremacy. But let me ask you, if you were to substitute white aggression for white supremacy, would that alter your message or concept that you're introducing to us?
All problems are solved through the process of questions and answers. Now, so what's the logical question to ask? Because we got another term on the board. See, that's why I believe in putting things on the board. I put the term white supremacy, and I say white supremacy and racism is one and the same. And I consistently use that term. Now, many people down through the years have said, Fuller, don't use that term. That makes us feel bad. I say, well, this is not about feeling good. You know, nothing that I talk about is about feeling good. I'm not trying to make people feel good at all. I'm just trying to get to the truth. You either have white supremacy or you don't. Now, take your choice. That's what I say. You either have it or you don't. The white supremacists either tell non-white people what to do, and they better do it, or they don't. That's what supreme means. Now, does the evidence show this? I say it always shows so far that it's true, okay? But some black people say, yeah, it might be true, but it makes me feel bad. I say, well, see, this is a huge mistake. When you're trying to feel good under a terrible situation, I say, now that, according to logic, is a form of insanity. You're not supposed to feel good, all right? Black people have to get that in our heads. Now, that's why we get on drugs and all like that. We want a real shortcut to feeling good real quick and want to stay that way, feeling good all the time. But when you're in a terrible situation, you shouldn't feel good. See, feelings serve a purpose. And when you feel like everything is awful, it probably means that everything is awful, which means you have to get busy making things the way that it should be, which is what we avoid doing because we have been taught that somebody else is going to do that. Somebody is going to come down the road one of these days and make me feel good forever. And
all right, hold that thought right there. Please hold that thought right there. We got to take a short break. I'll let you finish your response to Mike in Los Angeles. 800-450-7876. You too can reach out to Neely Fuller. We'll take your calls next right here on FM 95.9 and also AM 1450 WOL, where information is power. And thank you for staying with us, folks. Our guest is Neely Fuller Jr. We're talking about racism, white supremacy. Says we need to decode that system and reach a system of justice. Again, the number to call to speak to him is 800-450-7876. Before we left for our short break, we're speaking with Mike in L.A. So, Neely Fuller Jr., I'll let you finish your response to Mike because I think he has a follow-up question.
Yes, I was talking about that term, rather than use the term white supremacy, use the term white aggression. Okay, put that on the board. Erase the term white supremacy, put white aggression on the board. Does that change the circumstances? I have found that it doesn't. You can switch words around and play with words all you want to. I say that to people based on logic. But if the situation is the same, what does supreme means? Why are you afraid of it? Anything can be supreme, you know. I mean, if you let it, and we let the system of white supremacy exist simply because we think we can wish it away. We don't make any effort to replace it with a better system, and that better system would be the system of justice, logically speaking. They say, yeah, but, you know, you're giving you know, those white aggressors, they ain't nothing. I mean, you're giving them too much credit. I'm not giving them anything other than what the rest of us are giving. I mean, you know, I'm giving them what I'm giving them, and that is what they demand that they want. Now, if that ain't supreme, I don't know what is. I do what they tell me to do. That's supreme, folks. I don't tell them what to do. They tell me what to do. I'm a prisoner of war. I was born in a prison. Every non-white person who is existing now, truth be told, is a prisoner of the system of white supremacy. That's why we are protesting how we are being treated. They are not protesting how they are being treated by us. That's supreme. That's what supreme means. It doesn't mean you are good. See, people get the two words mixed up. Words are very important. If you say white aggression, yes, it's white aggression. That's how they got to be supreme. They were very aggressive in becoming supreme. They say we're going to take over the non-white people of this world, black, brown, red, and yellow, and having them begging us about whether or not they'll be able to eat tomorrow or today or sleep tonight, because we can kill them anytime we want to, all of them. And they can't kill us anytime they want to kill us, because a lot of them might want to kill us right now, but they don't have the know-how, and they ain't got the muscle. All right, just like, you know, in the Corleones, if you want to use the Godfather movie as an example. Hey, who has the muscle? Who has the muscle? Well, if we had it, then they wouldn't be treating us like this. This is the kind of thinking that gets black people in trouble when they jump out of a car when they are being pulled over, and an armed person walks up to them, and that person has a white face who may or may not be a racist, and all of a sudden, woof, 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 woof. Black people have, you know, a lot of us have these big, heavy voices. A lot of us been lifting weights and all like that, and we got a lot of muscle in our bodies, but not a whole lot of muscle, the record has shown, in our brains, all right? We are not known to be the most brainiest people in the world. Truth be told, and the white supremacists know that because they have seen to it that we haven't learned very much in the little time that we have been under their tutelage, because they block us from learning. But we walk around trying to make ourselves believe that we know everything, and that does not pay off very well, particularly when we start trying to express it in the form of counter-aggression against the aggressor. Like I said, many of us, and I've seen it, and some of us have experienced it, jumping out of the car, woof, 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 woof. You ain't gonna put them cuffs on me. I mean, you know, I got my rights. I know what my rights are. I'm tired of this. You know, woof, 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 woof. Okay, all right, woof, woof, woof. And what is the record shown? That most of us who do that wind up out of this world within the next 2 or 3 seconds, and everybody that's supposed to be our homies, our kin folks, our friends, people who are fighting for our rights and all like that out there with signs and balloons and candles and teddy bears for the 10 millionth time saying, woe is me. This has got to stop. We can't have no more of this. But it all started with that being unrealistic, with woof, 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 woof. I know my rights. You can't do this to me. Oh, hey, boy, I can't do this to you when I have been doing it to everybody that looks like you, and my foreparents before me been doing it to everybody that looks like you, like forever in recorded history, and you bang, 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 bang. Okay, now what do you say about what I can't do to you, boy? Huh? Can you speak? Hey, you're lying here on this highway. Speak up, boy. Hey, can't you tell me all about how you did, who you could whip in the cell block? All right, where you spent most of your time before you got in my face? Tell me all about it, boy, with them 15 bullets I just put in you. Tell me all about how you built the pyramids. And then while your buddy's waiting down the highway for me to go down there and do the same thing to him. You people never wake up and smell the coffee. Smell white supremacy. How about that smell?
Mike, you have a follow-up question?
Yeah. Oh, I'm 100% with you. Second question. In your book, United Independent Compensatory Code System, in your 9 areas of people activity, you left off, or you don't include medicine and health. Is there a reason for that?
Lots of people have asked me that, and there is a reason for it. I could list maybe 50 areas of activity. I left off health, same reason I left off maybe 50 or 60 other things that I could have named. I mean, it's just endless names. They're just labels for people's activity. But I always say the reason I didn't include health is because if Neely Fuller is doing all the things that he should do in economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war, if I got all that codified, down pat, where I know what to do and what not to do in each one of those 9 areas of activity, I got health. See, that is health. See, health just means, it comes from the word what? Heal, H-E-A-L. You're healing. That's compensatory logic, making up for what's missing. That's what the word compensation means. So if you're doing what you should do and not doing what you shouldn't do in all of the 9 areas of activity, you automatically have health. You not only have health as an individual, if everybody's doing it, you have a healthy world. You have a healthy society. You have the equivalent of what the code books calls universal man with and for universal woman, which is what we should be all heading toward being. Not just strong black people. That's too limited. We should be universal man and universal woman, and completely able to go anywhere, anytime in the known universe and excel at doing constructive things in all 9 areas of activity. I mean, with a breeze, with ease. That's what we should be aiming for. And we can start by having a code for doing so.
All right.
Thank you very much. Thank you, gentlemen.
800-450-7876. And again, I got to remind you folks, because Neely Fuller uses logic, cause and effect. So listen keenly what he says. This is not one of those shows that you kind of halfway listen. You've got to get really into the radio. Eric is up next. He's calling us from New York. He's on line 3. Eric, you're on with Neely Fuller Jr.
Yeah, I got a question. My question is I'm going to lay out a couple of little scenarios here before I get to the question very quickly. Can you say that the best defense against white supremacy could be a good offense? What I mean is, sometimes I think that black people don't go on offense enough. I kind of slightly disagree with you. I think that white supremacists are very emotional. if you look at their emotional reaction to this current movie, Black Panther, that's out, it tells you a lot about their fear, when we start to think and concept things for ourselves. So my question is, to use a sports analogy, you say like a football team uses a defensive play called mirror, or on my football team it was called twins, meaning whatever the offense does, the defense does. If the offense comes out with 5 wide, then you line up 5 wide. So what I'm saying is that the racists over the last few centuries have used the media as a very effective weapon. I think it's their very best weapon, whether it's the Bible or paintings or sculptures of white gods, or nowadays movies and television shows. So do you think that it would behoove Black people, or maybe put us in a position of power to destroy their system, if we start to depict them as being the terrorists, the aggressive, animalistic, savage people that, they are? I don't think enough Black people look at.
Right. Actually, hang on a second, Eric. We got to take a break here. We got to check the traffic and weather again in the DMV. I'll let you put your final touches on your question for Neely Fuller Jr. Folks, you too can do the same. 800-450-7876 gets you in. Your calls are next right here on FM 95.9 and AM 1450. WOL, where information is power. And thanks for staying with us, folks. Our guest is Neely Fuller Jr., and I got to tell you again, you got to listen really keenly to how he explains and reaches his reasoning, because, again, he uses logic. That's cause and effect. And if you've taken any law classes, or if you're a law student, you know that you've taken logic, or you've just taken logic in college, you understand what he's saying, because he's teaching us how to decode the system. Before we get back to him, though, and Eric in New York and his question, I remind you that coming up in the next few days, before the end of the week, you're going to hear from 2 of our power talkers, Dr. Claude Anderson. We like to call him the man with the plan. He's going to take his Powernomics on the road tour, his Powernomics system on the road tour, and also Dr. Leonard Jeffries. Dr. J is going to talk about South Africa before apartheid and after apartheid. Anyway, let's go back to Eric in New York on line 3. Eric, your question, finalize your question for Neely Fuller Jr.
Yeah, so my question is, do you think that it would benefit us as a whole if our writers and filmmakers and things start making it very clear, especially to the youth, that these people that are classified as white supremacists are out to get you, that they will kill you, that they should not be trusted, that you should seek to destroy them at all times possible? That doesn't necessarily mean committing a crime, but, there's different ways economically or educationally to do that, or politically. So I guess, is the best, is because when you talk about racism, the analogy that you made about the police officer and the person that's sticking his chest out against the cop, standing up like you should, but is that logical? Saying, how do you stop racism in real time? Because we can have a code and all this, but the point is that if they want to surround you with 19 or 20 people with guns and handcuffs, then they can. So my question is the best offense a good offense? Do we need to make it clear to Black people that these people are no good, period, and we need to put that in the heads of our children?
All right, let's give them a chance to respond.
Well, first of all, if you start talking about children, and most people do, we are all children. See, once you have been made a prisoner of war, you are in a childlike state. And all of the Black people who are on this planet now, according to the evidence, not according to Neely Fuller, are prisoners of the white supremacists. We are in their prison. Now, where are the boundaries of the prison? The earth itself. If you're Black and anywhere on this planet, you are under the domination of the system of white supremacy. I put the system of white supremacy in capital letters. So, when you are a prisoner of war, because they made war on our ancestors, and then we became the children of our ancestors, so we were born in prison. We were already captive. The people that came before us were captive. Otherwise, we wouldn't be in captivity now. See, so we were already born on a place called planet Earth, and the planet Earth has been made a prison camp. The whole planet is a prison camp for anybody who is classified as non-white. According to what? According to the evidence. You just go on evidence. Travel anywhere. You find what? Dark-skinned people. I mean, trying to basically, when they're not fighting each other, which the white supremacists put us up to doing, because all of our fights are just nothing but fights within the prison walls, like anybody who's been in most of the what you call the big prisons. There are always fights going on in prison. Well, black people fight all over the world, but they fight each other all over the world, just like they do in any other prison camp. So that goes without saying. And we will continue to do that as long as because that's what prisoners of war do, or any prisoners. They fight about a card game. They fight about nickels and dimes. They fight about cigarettes. They fight about nothing at all just because they ain't got nothing else to do. They stand around waiting on somebody to tell them what to do. It's what you do when you're in prison. What do the black people on this planet do? Stand around waiting on somebody white to tell us what to do in all areas of activity: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, sex, religion, and war. They tell us what to do. Right now, they're telling us what to do big time in the area of what? Sex. They are saying that being a scattersexual is the greatest thing that was ever thought up, and that black people should participate in it. And black people everywhere are nodding, just like we do anytime if something is propagandized on a large scale. Yeah, that makes sense. That's what that's what we need. We don't need no better housing. We don't need jobs. We need new forms of sexuality. As many of them as we can get. How many you got there, boss? Well, let's see. We can start out maybe 3 or 4 different types, and then we can expand as we go along. We can probably come up with maybe 30 or 40 different types. That's what you think black people need, right? Yeah. That sounds like that's pretty good. We like sex, and so the more different types of sex we got, the better that should be. Ain't that right, boss? Yeah, boy, that's right. Now you got it. Forget about doing anything else. Put that on the back burner right now. That's what they have black people doing all over the world right now. All right? And if it's not that, it's some other kind of nonsense, like, another tattoo, another slogan, another hairdo. They say that's good enough for you people. You don't need nothing else. You don't need to think about nothing else. So in answer to the person's question, we need a complete constructive code. We need to get rid of what we call black culture as it is now and as it has been. Why? For a very logical reason. What is culture? Culture is nothing but the sum total of what you do. And black culture has failed black people. What we do has failed black people. So we need to do something different. So the caller is correct about that, but that's something different as what? Come up with a constructive code. That's guaranteed to be 2 things: successful and constructive. Now, the white supremacists will help us do anything that doesn't make sense. Yeah, anytime they think of something, and they think of things all the time because they try it. They do a lot of things that don't make sense, but they can afford to. But anytime the white supremacists come up with anything that is absolutely stupid, they say, hey, this is just right for black people. And so they look at each other sometimes and they say, well, you don't think they'll go for this, do you? Say black people will go for anything stupid anytime because they love stupidity. If it's something that makes sense, they run like hell away from it because we have trained them to be that way. So in answer to the gentleman's question, we need a code, an individual code, and I've tried to write it in my books, that is directed to black people that will help us to always think, speak, and act in the most constructive manner. And in running a few tests on it, a lot of people have said that it has helped them. And I think if we continue on that, I mean, everything in the universe is either constructive or non-constructive. There's no such thing as in between. We think there's a whole lot in between that. There's nothing in between that. Every move that you make and every word that you say is either going to have a constructive effect or a non-constructive effect. So we have to even orchestrate our language, codify our language, so that it always has a constructive effect when we speak to someone rather than a non-constructive effect. Otherwise, we should learn to be something that we're definitely not used to, be the most silent people on earth without being dead.
I want to get in that later on, but Michael's waiting for us, 800-450-7876. Michael's on line 5. He's calling from Columbus, Ohio. Michael, you're on with Neely Fuller Jr.
Yes, thanks for taking my call. One of the questions, I don't know if Mr. Fuller was asked, is the people in South Africa and the move they made by taking back their land, is that a positive move for them changing the system that they're in, which is white supremacy? The other question is our greatest resource are our children. And what we do is give our children to the system when we send them to their schools, just like our parents did to us. And we get grounded and graded deeply into the system and worship their lives, anything they tell us, such as they won't put hidden figures in the history books on the truth about what we did, and they make up all these lies about what they've done, and they teach our kids to serve the system. And I think every year that we allow these people to take our children and educate them and induct them into the system, we lose ourselves. And the other thing is, we've made money our God. Everything we talk about when we have a problem, the cure is money. No more morals, no more respect, no more unification, because he can buy us out with that thing that he wrote on. In God we trust, these Negroes will always want this money. Thank you.
All right. Let's give him a chance to respond. Thanks, Michael.
Okay.
You got the questions?
See, counter-racist science is simple because the system of white supremacy is simple. What is white supremacy? It's just some white people who got together and decided that they would set up a royal system that's based on just looking at a person and saying that person can be classified as non-white. So since that person can be classified as non-white, what do we do with a person who is classified as non-white? We dominate and mistreat that person. And we should have not only a right to do so, that is a duty of every white person to dominate and mistreat every person who is classified as non-white just on sight. Every person that we ever encounter in our entire existence. And we will set up a system based on that. And we will do it in all areas of activity. Now, see, the basic question we're talking about in all of this discussion of racism that we keep going on and on with, it's just a simple thing of replace the system of white supremacy with justice. So in talking about the school systems and all like that, all you have to do is just walk in and say, is anybody being mistreated here? And if so, how? Why? Based on one formula. We don't need a lot of formulas. This one basic formula, of course, there's a lot of small formulas that come after that, but the basic formula is what? Guarantee that no person is mistreated and guarantee that the person who needs help the most gets the most constructive help. That's all you got to ask. Walking to an office building, a warehouse, a school, and then you look and see, divide what? The difference between what is constructive and what is non-constructive. And this is very important to remember, folks. Everything is going to fall in one of those two categories. It's either going to be constructive or non-constructive. And the formula for doing that is stay in the question lane. You walk into every situation without accusing anybody, because you mentioned South Africa and land taking and all like that. You just simply say, is anybody being mistreated here?
Hold that thought right there. We got to take a quick break. We're closing in on the top of the hour, so all our stations can identify themselves, like FM 95.9 and AM 1450, WOL, where information is power. Thanks for staying with us, folks. Our guest is Neely Fuller Jr. You know Neely Fuller, one of Dr. Welson's mentors. The number to call to speak to him, 800-450-7876. Not too late to call somebody up and tell them that Neely Fuller's on the radio explaining how to decode the system of racism and white supremacy. It's a matrix, and once you get caught up in the system, as he says, and Dr. Welson also points out, if you don't understand how it works and everything that it entails, everything else that you think you understand will only serve to confuse you. You know, all of a sudden when you get it, you go, wow, this is what he's talking about, because you use his logic, cause and effect. So, Dr. Fuller, I'm going to let you finish up your thought, your response to our last caller.
Well, see, everything in the universe is about cause and effect. Going to the moon, I mean, you figure out how you get there. I mean, that takes a lot of detailed thinking. And then you get there, and before you go, you also have to figure out, okay, how do you get there? And how do you get back? So you do that with every move that you make. Just like going to the moon. Otherwise, you don't get there and say, did anybody bring the sardines? You better figure that out before you make your move. See, so that you already know that you are going to land safely, and then when you start back, you're going to get back safely, which means you have to think from A to Z. Black people have been taught to think from A to B, and then that's it. And then we go around beating ourselves on the chest, talking about how great we are. And the white supremacists just laugh, 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 laugh. And then that's when they use the N-word, say that's exactly the type of thinking that we want them to always have. They make 3 or 4 little baby steps down the road, and they think that they have conquered everything. And we actually are like that. We are baby-like. I mean, that's why we even call ourselves boys, because we're not men. So that's an accurate description. Boys in the hood, Hey, or we actually, a lot of times, erroneously, as far back as I can remember, call ourselves men, because we know that we are not that. When Martin Luther King was here, just a few days before he was killed, there were people walking around with signs saying, what? I am a man. Now, if you stop and think about that, white people don't walk around saying, I am a man. Why? Because we already called them the man. I might be a man, but here comes the man. That's the real man. I'm a phony man. I walk around flexing my muscles and woof, 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 woof to the black female and ready to beat her up if she gets out of line and all like that, and tell her I'm a man. Black males do that here in 2018. Somewhere we're doing that right now. Woman, you better shut your mouth. I'm the man. I'm the man in this house. All right. When the man shows up and say, what's going on here, boy? Why can't you people behave? Then all of a sudden, you become a little boy right quick, right there in front of what you call your woman. We need to stop that nonsense. We're the greatest pretenders in the world. That's why we're always in trouble. And then begging somebody, to say, well, I made a mistake. I made a mistake. I made a mistake, Your Honor. I won't do that no more. I'm sorry, Your Honor. Have mercy on me, Your Honor. Somewhere right now or tomorrow in a million courts, I'm sorry, sir. I'm sorry. I'd like to apologize to the family. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. We need a code. The first step in codification is to recognize that you are not where you ought to be. We are nowhere near the type of people that we ought to be. Yet we go around bragging more than anybody on the planet. And we are the joke of the entire planet. Nobody wants to be around us that got any sense, and that includes us. Black people all over this planet are doing what? Babies in their arms, right this minute as I speak, according to what? The evidence. Saying what? Which way did the white people go? I got to get out of Haiti. I got to get out of Rio de Janeiro. I got to get out of South Chicago. I can't stay here no more. Bullets are flying through the window. I got to go somewhere else. Somewhere else like where, lady? Which way did the white people go? See, that's really what we're saying. You know, the very people who enslaved us, they have us in a prison-like situation where we are like crabs, feeding off of each other, robbing each other, stealing from each other, gang-banging each other. And then when it gets too bad and the ambulances stop running, which they just might at any day, and that's a real wake-up call. We always talk about don't call 911 because that's snitching. The baddest gangbanger in the black hood will call 911 if he can crawl down that alley and get his hands on his cell phone that he dropped on the way running from another gangbanger. He'll call 911 when there's 9 bullets in him, all right? And some white people, some young white people right out of med school, he is hoping. Now, he's supposed to be so tough, and later on when you interview him on TV, what will he say? Yeah, I'm bad. I was one of the baddest dudes around, man. They put 15 bullets in me, and I survived. I'm tough. No, you're not tough. If those 2 guys who dropped out of med school and who are now in that ambulance, and both of them are young and white, and they don't know nothing about no guns, but they stayed in med school. If they didn't get you out of that alley, mister, you would have been just another statistic. If those white people in those ambulances don't come after your black self in the hood, all them gangs would disappear because they'd all be dead because ain't no ambulances running for them. That's where the tough job is when they get you in that ER. And they put, they running around all over the place. And they putting those X-ray pictures up at 12 o'clock at night. And they're calling for Dr. So-and-so and Dr. So-and-so, emergency room right now. Gunshot wound, from the Bronx to Brooklyn to Compton. Oh, yeah, all those places we say we got to get out of on account of what? Our behavior toward each other. We need a code that says one black person shouldn't contact another black person for any reason except something constructive. That's one of the first laws in the code. You don't pick up that phone, that iPad, or nothing and call anybody unless you stop and think and say, do I have something constructive to say to Alice or to Henry or to Kamani or to Jomo or to Jeffrey or whatever his name is or her name is? What I'm going to say, is it going to have a constructive effect or a non-constructive effect? Just on that alone, the code says, because that's what we need. We need an absolute code for everything. No guesswork about nothing. So that every move that we make has a constructive effect. All right? I'm trying to cover a whole lot, and I'm kind of jumping around and doing it. But I'm trying to cover what we should be about.
And let me jump in here. Right. And Neely Fuller Jr., can you expound on the fact that she says, once you were just sort of touching, nibbling around the edges of it. We talk too much. The times when we just shouldn't have a conversation with somebody just to have a conversation. He says we waste a lot of time doing that. Can you expound on that?
Black conversations should be the best conversations you can ever have with anybody in the world ever. Really. It's nowhere near that now. But white people, you know, just in a few days from now, it doesn't take long, should say, you know what? The most stupid acting people in the world and the people that you avoid talking to on the elevator or anywhere else because they do nothing but stupid talk are black people. But in a few days or just in a few hours, if we just choose to do it, that's all we got to do. Sometimes people call me and ask, well, Fuller, what can we do? I mean, you keep talking about your code and all like that. I said, I'm telling you what the code is. You don't have conversations with anybody, white or black, or any people, white or non-white, male or female, that does not have a constructive effect. You don't open your mouth until you stop and think, wait a minute, this thing that I'm fixing to say, is it going to have a constructive effect or a non-constructive effect? Now, suppose black conversation was codified in such a way that a black person never opened his or her mouth without saying something that is absolutely constructive. In other words, which means what? Out of everybody that said something, when you spoke, it made more sense than all the other people that spoke before you. That should be the goal of every black person on the planet.
Hold that thought right there. We got to take another quick break real quick. We got to check the traffic, and I'll let you finish your piece on the conversation, Black Conversation, next right here on FM 95.9 and AM 1450, WOL, where information is power. He's got a book out by the name, it's called The Code. That's the short name for it. I'm going to have him give it the full name for the book. But what we try to do is decode the system of racism and white supremacy. And Neely Fuller says the aim should be justice. Before we left, we were talking about black conversation. And Neely Fuller Jr., if you can put that in the context that we're always saying, hey, what's happening? Hey, man, what's going on? Or what's happening? We're always saying those phrases. So if you can explain why we should limit our conversations between each other and explain why. And again, folks, he uses logic as cause and effect. So listen very, very closely to how Neely Fuller explains this.
If we did that all over the world, starting with this minute, it would change the world right this minute. Just that one simple thing. People are always talking about we got to go somewhere and have 15,000 meetings, you know, in which case everybody just stands up talking about how awful it is, or we start talking about, the glories of the pyramids or something like that. But we're not problem solving. See, we need to keep those. And what's the formula for problem solving? Making a distinction between what is constructive and what is not, and asking questions and coming up with answers to the first question without moving to the second question without answering the first question first. That's another thing in our conversations. We have a tendency, because we're in a hurry, and I understand that. I sometimes get caught up in that. I mean, we've been held back so long, we are just almost about to explode. So once we start talking, we just talk a mile a minute. But we're tripping all over our shoelaces while we're doing it. And, we're spinning our wheels, you might say, without going anywhere. The wheels are not on the ground, okay? So make sure that you're well-grounded and start off slowly and methodically so that you know what you're doing and how you're doing it and get where you're going in a methodical, codified manner. This is how all civilizations, if there's ever going to be one, evolve. There never has been a civilization in recorded history yet, okay? But black people should be pioneers in establishing the first civilization in recorded history, because there's no record of there ever being a civilization. They say Roman civilization. You look at the Romans, you can't call that civilized. They're feeding people to the lions. And the royal family, poisoning each other. Caesar Augustus being poisoned by his wife Livia. And then you got people like Nero and people like Caligula. And you study Caligula's activities, and you're going to call that civilized? And have black students having to go to college and pay big money to learn about Caligula and his great civilization, or Alexander the Great, who did nothing but slaughter people? Now, they built architecture and all like that, like the Colosseum, but in that Colosseum, what were they doing? Feeding people to the lions. See, we need to look at things for what they really are. And we're correct when we say we need to wipe out a whole lot of the curricula of these colleges that were set up for white people in the first place anyway, and white people who had a whole lot of money and didn't have nothing else to do, where they could go and learn at great expense how to sip tea. That's what college was all about among ancient royalty. It was about giving royal people something to do. And the elementary schools, they called it, was for the workers, the people that did all the real work. Because actually, royal people, which is something black people even brag about, which we ought to stop doing, talking about how we had great kings and queens. No, we didn't. Kings and queens are on welfare. Stop and think about it. They're on welfare. They don't produce anything. People who get out and work in factories and work on the farms and things like that, that's getting something done. People who sit and burn midnight oil and invent things, taking years to come up with an invention that everybody then enjoys. But the record of most kings and queens is just going around misusing people, taking stuff away from people. That's how they got their capital. The king can do no wrong. And you got tribal kings right now among black people that think that they are running the entire world when they're not running nothing. They can't even run a decent village. Everybody there is barefoot. And the king is practically barefoot if he wasn't getting shoes from whom? The white supremacists. So we need to come off all of that nonsense. Black people, according to the code, what's in the code book, one of our priorities should be stop showing off, because that is the thing that black people look forward to more than anything else. Doing what? Showing off. Showing off to whom? To other black people. Truth be told. In our minds, walking around all day, working on jobs and everything. We have one plan in mind in our entire lives, in our entire existence, if you can call it life, which it really isn't. We don't know what life is. We've never had it. But in our existence, as prisoners of war, as prisoners of the system of white supremacy, we worship the idea of showing off to other black people. As far as I can remember, a black person would say, well, man, I got to get off this farm and go up north and go get me a job in Detroit City, where I got a cousin. He can get me a job. He can hook me up with some folks that can get me one, and I'm going to make me a whole lot of money. Okay, Willie, and after you make the money, then what? Then, man, I'm going to get me some hydrate plants and get me, 4 or 5, sets of good vines, meaning suits, clothes, and a couple of diamond rings, bling bling, all right? And then what? Then I'm going to get, back then it was what? Get me a Cadillac. Okay, Willie, all right, you worked for 5 years now. You got all of that. Now what? Now I'm going back down to Mobile, Alabama, and do what? Drive up and down those country roads doing what? Showing off to other black people. And truth be told, that has not changed. We just don't go down country roads anymore. But our ambitions, if we tell the truth, the average black person has as an ambition for his or her entire existence, showing off to another black person. Showing off what? Your ability to do things that you figure they can't do because you've been somewhere to a school somewhere that the white people open their doors for, all right? You're showing that off, showing off the knowledge, or you're showing off the ability to do what? Belittle each other. I call it the 4 great show-offisms. They're in the code book. And then another one is showing off the things that the white supremacists have allowed you to have. Now, a lot of people from the old school know about the Cadillac. Cadillacs don't mean anything in this day and time. You know somebody's real old school when they go around talking about a Cadillac now. You know that they got to be in their 80s. All right. But they talk about other things. And we show off to each other. And the showing off gets to be so bad that there's something we do that's really deadly. Gang banging is what? I mean, everybody who's a member of a gang, if you go somewhere in the bathroom right now and sit down and tell yourself the truth. Why do you gang bang? Well, you know, all the boys that I hang with, they gang bang. No, that ain't the real reason. That's part of the reason. I mean, the core of the reason is what? To make an impression, all right? That's why you're doing it. You're going to kill somebody to make an impression. And you're going to kill somebody that you went to school with to make an impression. An impression on who? On the man in the moon? No, because you ain't been to the moon. You don't know nothing about the man in the moon. So who are you going to make an impression on? Tell yourself the truth now. Hiding in the bathroom, telling yourself the truth. Sometimes when you hide from yourself, you can tell yourself the truth. Why am I gangbanging here in Compton? All right? In 2018. Why do I do that? Well, that's because everybody else is doing it. Okay, that's one reason, but let's get to the core of the reason of why all of you are doing it. Showing off. Showing off to who? The people up in Beverly Hills? Or the people, you know, in the royal family in England? You know, the people of Norway? Are you showing off to them? No, we ain't showing off to them. I don't know nothing about them dudes. Well, whom are you showing off to? The people up and down the block, the people in the hood. Okay, who are they? Well, the black people in the same condition I'm in. Now, I'll ask you the clincher question. What value is that? After all is said and done, all the shell casings and whatnot are gathered up, all the funerals and the balloons, all those teddy bears hanging on that ragged fence have been rained on, the funeral is over. What does that really mean? All of you are showing off. You've been waiting all your life. I mean, to fire that 9mm as many times as you fired it today. Now, what did you get in return? Cause and effect.
Hold that thought right there again. We've got to take another short break. I'll let you finish your thought on the other side. And also, Bookman in D.C. wants to talk to you. Folks, you too can join the discussion with Neely Fuller Jr. Reach out to us at 800-450-7876. We'll take your calls next as the big show rolls on from FM 95.9 and AM 1450. WOL, where information is power. And thank you for staying with us, folks. Our guest is Neely Fuller Jr., Decoding Racism and White Supremacy. That system, he says, if you don't understand it and everything that it entails, then everything that you think you understand will only serve to confuse you. Neely Fuller Jr., I'm going to let you finish your thought, then we'll speak to Bookman calling you from D.C.
Yes. I want to continue this. See, that's showing off. And showing off in the prison yard, because I will go back. All of us are in prison. And so that's just like somebody at Attica or Folsom or Angola or some prison in South Africa showing off your new bunk bed or the new paint job in your cell to other prisoners. Now, when you look at that within the context of the entire world, the white supremacists going into outer space, and then that same white supremacist will come and take a look at homeboy in his cell showing off the new paint job that somebody else did in his cell. Yeah, man, It looks pretty nice now. And that person that just got back from Mars, take a look at that and say, that's where his mind is. That's what he calls big time. Now, that's black people in the ghetto, every last one of the ghettos. And the whole world is a ghetto for black people, all right? So any kind of showing off that we do is silly. So what is the code here? What does it say? Black people need to stop showing off to anybody because we are not qualified to show off to anybody, anywhere, at any time, because we are too far behind to be qualified to show off anything. And I'm talking about the very best among us. The one thing we shouldn't ever do is show off. In fact, the black people who are loaded with money, who live in a castle and all like that, who have everything that you can name, when a white person comes up and says, well, you're doing pretty good, because what they really mean is you're doing pretty good for an N-word. That's what they really mean, whether you think they mean that or not. That's what it really means, because that's the truth of the matter. Yeah, you are coming up, the last of a long line of people who have gone and done everything. Then here we come bringing up the rear and stepping proud and showing off doing it. We're the most pitiful people that have ever existed. So the code says one of the ugliest things you can ever see a black person do is bragging about anything. So stop bragging. Even when you do something that's truly great in the eyes of the entire world, I mean better than anybody has ever thought about doing it. And I'm saying, I'm not just talking about in sports or something like that. I'm talking about something over the top great, like coming up with a cure for 15 different types of cancer. And when somebody approaches you with a microphone and say what you have to say, what do you have to say? As a black person, because they're going to put that in there, of having done this outstanding job of curing 7 different types of cancer in the last 3 years. And you know what that black person should say? What are you talking about? I haven't even got started. This is what every black person should say when we are asked about anything that we have accomplished. What are you talking about? I don't have time to stop, for no celebration. We're not about celebrating anything. Black people don't celebrate. We educate and move on to the next step. Why? We're on a battlefield. And 99.5 won't do if you want to compare it to a football field. 99.5 yards won't do. We are end zone people. If you want to compare it to basketball, the new black people don't dribble down the court. Once we get our hands on the ball, it's a slam dunk. Anything less than that is disgraceful. We're just that far behind. We don't dribble down the court. That takes up too much time. We throw that ball from one end of the court to the other, slam dunk it every time. Otherwise, we don't touch the ball. That's us. That's the new black people. We're not going to be like we have been, the joke of everybody on the planet. That's what we need for a code, that type of thinking and that type of talk. Stop bragging about anything. We build a museum, it's not for bragging. See, this museum is not for celebrating anything. It's for educating, commemorating what has happened, what a mess everything has been. We do that. We're not going to forget history, but we're not going to brag about history. We're going to talk about everything that was done that shouldn't have been done. And then we're going forward from there and say what we are going to do minute by minute, day by day, to make things the way they ought to be. Everywhere, not just over on the other side of the tracks in the hood. Don't restrict us to that. We are on the world stage now. We're going to stay there. That should be the black code.
Hold that thought right there. 800-450-7876. Bookman, as I mentioned, has been holding for you. He's on line 3, calling from Washington, D.C. Bookman, you're on with Neely Fuller Jr.
Yes, peace, Brother Carl, and peace to you, Brother Neely Fuller. You know, brother, I read and studied your book over 25 years ago as a book salesman in America. Brother, brother, as a member of the Nation of Islam for the last 37 years, what you're saying in your analysis, I mean, it goes hand in hand with the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. I mean, I'm looking at it all, and I'm saying, wow, these are the teachings with analysis that you give, brother. And everything that you have said, my brother, has been 1,000,000% correct with black people. And I met our sister, your protege, Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, over 30 years ago, brother. I took some students to see her up at the Lincoln Theater, about 14 students, brother. And two of them had their PhDs, and one has a law degree from Columbia. And they're actually trying to change the paradigm that takes place with us under white supremacy. It's hard, brother. But what you're saying, brother, anybody that's listening to this, brother, need to not just listen, but put it in motion and see the effects that you get from listening to this black man. Thank you, Brother Neely Fuller. We love you, brother.
Well, thank you for your compliments, but it's really not Neely Fuller. I always tell people, don't follow Neely Fuller nowhere. Neely Fuller makes mistakes. I'm a fellow prisoner of war. We are in a war. And so far, we have lost the war, but a war is not lost until you stop fighting. Any general will tell you that. It's not over until it's over, all right? It's only when you stop fighting. And the non-white people of this planet, our assignment is to keep fighting the system of white supremacy and replace it with justice until it's done, no matter how long it takes. But what I've tried to do with the code is fast forward everything, because I don't believe in this word called struggle. I believe in moving at lightning speed. I mean, like this minute, not tomorrow, not the next generation. I came up under that philosophy of, well, we got to teach our children so that the next generation could be. I heard that in my generation. And I don't believe in this next generation thing. Everybody's sitting around talking about the next generation. And people ask me, I've been asked on this program, I know on other programs, what do you tell children? I said, we're all children, so we tell each other the truth. It's like you tell children the truth. You just tell them the truth, that's all. Tell them the truth about what? About everything, but you tell them in such a way that they understand what you're saying. That's the only difference. But you do that with old people. Sometimes old people don't understand what you're saying, so you have to find the words to tell them in such a way that they understand what you're saying. And there's no such thing as age when it comes to doing the correct thing. You're 1 year old, you're 2 days old, you tell a 2-day-old offspring the correct thing to do and the thing not to do. You tell that to somebody who's 200 years old. You tell all people the same thing. I don't know where we got that thing about elders and all that. Elders don't mean anything except you've been here a long time. It means, what have you been doing? Have you been on your assignment? And so far, the assignment for black people has not been carried out. We haven't even gotten started from where we need to be. So that's why I say we should get out of this thing of bragging. These baby steps, take 3 baby steps and then drop everything and got to have a parade. We got to get out of that childlike mentality. We don't have time for parades, period. Let other people parade. We got to burn midnight oil and figure out how to solve problems. Spend full time doing one thing, problem solving. Become a people who are known for problem solving, and do it by tomorrow morning, here in April of 2018. Whatever the date is, I think it's the 10th or something like that. Solve these problems by the 11th. That's the kind of thinking we're supposed to be doing. Not talking about some next generation. I heard that when I was about 10 years old. Well, people sitting around, elderly people in the barbershop. Well, you know, the next generation.
Hold that story right there. Yeah, hold that story right there because we're really running late. We got to take this break real quick. I'll let you finish telling us about the barbershop and also how to get your book next on FM 95.9 and AM 1450. WOL, where information is power. And thanks for staying with us, folks. Our guest is Neely Fuller Jr. We're trying to decode the system of racism and white supremacy. Number to call to speak to Neely Fuller is 800-450-7876. We're going to speak to Rick in Canada in a moment. But let me tell you, coming up in the next few days before the end of the week, you're going to hear from two of our power talkers. Dr. Claude Anderson, the man with the plan, taking his Powernomics story on the road. His first stop is going to be in Chi-Town this weekend, St. Louis next weekend. We'll tell you more of different cities he's going to be in when he joins us. Also, Dr. Leonard Jeffries. Dr. J, we're going to talk about South Africa, Winnie Mandela's influence in South Africa, pre-apartheid, post-apartheid, and right now with the land reform issue taking place. Anyway, let's go back to Neely Fuller Jr. If you can finish up the story, I think, about the barbershop, and then tell us how you can get your books, and then we'll speak to Rick in Ontario, Canada.
Yeah, well, you know, a lot of people, you know, we go through this, you know, and I can understand it. Because we've been held back so long and beaten down so much. I mean, just when we make just a few baby steps or just crawl up to, you know, just being able to crawl across a living room floor. I mean, we are just so proud because we have had so little to be proud of. But that's no reason to not be mathematical. Whatever created the universe wants us to tap into the logic that comes with the universe. And then we can just zip ahead. I mean, we can step lively. I mean, not slogging along and struggling and dragging. I mean, like it's going to take us forever just to go from the front door to the back door of a house. I mean, when the whole world is on the move, going all over the universe. And we can't even get to the bus stop without saying that's a real chore. I mean, and you know, people just look at us and say, what kind of example is that for anybody to follow? We don't even want to pay attention to each other because we're such poor examples. And poor examples come from just what? Poor thinking. Everything starts with a thought. Our thoughts are too small, much too small. I mean, just trying to impress each other and do nothing else in life but, well, I impressed about, 15 or 20 black people, sometime this year, my buddies, and they feel proud of me, and boy, do I feel good. When the white supremacists look at that and say, have you been to the bottom of the ocean? Do you know what's there? Well, I have. Do you go into outer space and back? Well, I have. Do you know where everything is under a place called the Congo? All of the minerals there? Well, I do. And I haven't even gotten started. And you are bragging about something that you bought or stole in a store, in a hood, and walking around with some shoes on with some white person's name on it and bragging about what you got. And you think that that is the end of life, that you have now done everything that there is to do in life on account of you got some $600 shoes that you never had on before. Now, that is the literal definition in the minds of the white supremacists of the N-word. That's what that is that you're looking at. That's what you call that type of thinking. And every white person looking at his offspring, his white child will say it. And that is what you don't ever want to be, is one of those creatures that walk around thinking like that. You don't ever want to think at that level. And they are telling their offspring that when they're about 6 years old. So when they get to be about 30, they are taking the place of their elders and running the entire universe like they have continued to do like forever. But I'm not talking about all white people. I'm talking about the white supremacists, whom black people right this minute all over the world are trying to say, I got to get out of here and find out which way the white people went so I can be around some people that got some sense. Because I can't stand being around these people that I was raised up with, because we ain't about nothing and ain't trying to be about nothing except just feeding off of each other and then getting mad about that. Can't stand ourselves and can't stand nobody that looks like us, truth be told. So which way did the white folks go? If I'm in Congo, which way did the white folks go? If I'm in Southside Chicago, which way did the white folks go? If I'm in Compton, which way did the white folks go? Well, why are you asking that? Because I can't stand this insanity here, that's why. Well, it's insane over there, yeah, but it's still better than here because there ain't no other place to go that makes sense. I ain't going where no more black people are because I know that they're not going to make sense in nothing that they do. You don't see black people clamoring to go nowhere on this planet where there are other black people, except where those black people, those other black people, are in contact with some white people who know how to get things done in an orchestrated, codified manner. Because that's the only places where anything is happening, truth be told. But it's the white supremacists' fault, because they set it up like that. But we shouldn't keep falling for it and pretending like it's not true. That's why I'm going to keep saying what I say. White supremacy. And don't dress it up, because it's the truth. They ain't supreme. Well then, all right, if they're not supreme, who is? Well, black people built the pyramids. That's not what I asked. I asked, who is supreme over you right now? There ain't nobody supreme over me with my God. Oh, okay. Well, what does your God tell you what to do? I go into the question mode now. And that's how you handle religion, too. Just go into question mode. The minute a person says that God is their leader, you keep asking questions. And then after they answer the questions, don't argue. Don't ever argue with a person about religion. Get back to that barbershop now, where religion is talked about all the time. Don't ever argue about religion. Just ask questions about that person's religion. And then when that person gets through talking about how much they believe in their religion, then watch and see what they do when the white supremacists come around. That's the test about who their God is. If you don't have to say nothing. Just watch what they do when the white supremacists come around and say, I don't like what you're doing. And well, what I'm doing is according to my religion. You going to tell me with your black self, and I'm a white person in the system of white supremacy, and with your black self, you're going to tell me about religion and what your religion tells you to do, and I just told you to do something that's just the opposite? Oh, now it's testing time now. And every black person on the planet understands that. And Neely Fuller don't have to say nothing. I just stand back and watch.
Okay. Tell us how we can get your book before we speak to Rick in Canada.
You can get the book by going to producejustice.com. And what's in the book, it tells what a black person, just like I'm giving some examples now, should and should not do, because that's all the code is. The whole world is run on codification. Everything that works has a code. We don't have anything that works as black people because we don't have a code. We just jump up and do anything on the spur of the moment. or whatever the white supremacists tell us to do. That's the closest thing that we come to a code that works, is when they tell us to do something. All right, then that'll work. When we try to do anything on our own, we just close our eyes and start grabbing stuff and kicking things over and knocking things down and hope that it all works out. We're not mathematical at all. Because codification is nothing but mathematics. But you can get the book that tells us the do's and don'ts. It makes suggestions. You don't have to take them, but it makes suggestions about what to do, what not to do in the code book. And you can get it by going to producejustice.com. Now, right now, you might have some problems in Canada because I've run into another problem, and it's probably because of the white supremacists. I don't know. I haven't been able to find that out. It's still available in the UK. There's some problems in Canada, I have been told. But I got people working on that, trying to iron it out. I'm trying to get the book out. But go to producejustice.com. You should be able to get it. The people in Canada can try to get it and see what they come up with by going to that site.
All right, let's go to Canada. Let's go to Ontario, to be exact. Rick's waiting for us. Rick, you're on with Neely Fuller Jr.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it. The last time I was in U.S., I bought 20 copies. Actually, I had them mailed to my aunt's house, and I took them all back home and sold them that day. So that's one way to get around whatever difficulties people are having. If they're trying to order them online, people can just be a little more proactive and be aware of the value of what's in that book. I was just so pleased to hear the point that Mr. Fuller made about the overemphasis on history of black people in history and the lack of emphasis in realizing that we're writing history right now. You know, I cannot take claim to building the pyramids because I didn't do it, but I would like to have some input into helping to develop my mind in such a way that it will possibly assist someone else's to assist me in my growth so that we can leave a legacy of forward motion. Or like Mr. Fuller says, problem solving this problem, replacing this system with justice. And I hear so many people putting that emphasis, and it's a wonderful thing to know your history. But and this is something that I've often wondered about. I'm gonna try to be real quick, Carl.
Rick, because we got like a minute left. I hate to do that to you, but I don't know if we have a chance to really answer your question. So if you can put in the question form real quick.
Well, at what point do we? I don't really have. He's answered all my questions. What he speaks is so plain and clear that a fool can't err. So I think it's good.
All right. Thanks, Rick. Neely Fuller Jr., tell us again, because Rick's in Canada. You say that they may have problems getting the book in Canada. But for the rest of the folks, how can they get the book
just go
and
to
the title of the book?
producejustice.com. Producejustice.com, and everything is right there. I haven't checked the site myself recently, but that's what I keep hearing from the people that I work with to see to it that it is there. They're also working on trying to get it in places like South Africa and everything. People are working on that, and I don't have a time frame for that, but they say it should be done this year, that it should be available everywhere, including Canada if it's not now.
All right. Well, give us the information as soon as you find out when it's available.
Producejustice.com. Yes, sir. Just go there. And I'm saying everybody should be working on just two things: problem solving, because we have a reputation for being what? Problem makers. When you say black people, everybody thinks, oh, those are problem makers, not problem solvers. But we can flip that.
That's a good way to leave us, because we're just flat out of time here. We've got to run. Thank you, Neely Fuller Jr. Folks, as I mentioned, we got to go. Stay strong, stay positive. We'll see you tomorrow at 4 o'clock right here on FM 95.9 and AM 1450. WOL, where information is power.